Hello, this is Waqar. I am a doctoral researcher at the Center for Applied Language Studies, University of Jyväskylä, Finland. I have started a series of sessions on writing academic research papers. And today's session, we will try to learn about writing introduction in our research paper. And I will be doing that with the help of one important model that is known as CORST model. CORST model stands for Creating a Research Space. It is a model that was developed by John Swales in 1990s. John Swales had actually proposed three important moves which should be considered while writing any introduction in a research paper. And under each move, he has provided us with different steps that can be followed. And it is not necessary that we follow all the steps, but by looking at the nature of the topic that we are investigating, we have to consider some of these steps to be part of our introduction. So the very first move, which is very important while developing introduction in our research article, it is establishing a territory or a situation. So that is very much relevant to developing a background in our introduction part. And how can we develop the situation? How can we establish a situation in our introduction part? There are some steps that you will see here. For example, step one is claiming importance. So claiming importance of the topic that you are actually investigating. And it is about describing the research problem and providing evidence to support why the topic is important to study. So it is very much clear that whenever we want to conduct a research inquiry on any topic into any field, there's always a problem to be investigated. So first of all, as a researcher, we have to identify a research problem, and then we have to develop its importance in our introduction part. For example, I have identified a problem, let's say discourses of otherness in English language materials. So I need to bring this in my introduction part, the notion of otherness, for example, and then I have to develop its importance, why I need to study otherness. And then in step two, we have to look at the making topic generalizations. By topic generalization, we mean that we have to provide statements about the current state of knowledge. For example, I want to research otherness in teaching materials. Then I have to see that what is actually happening in the field. For example, it is situated in a broader field of applied linguistics. Then what is happening in the field? What has been carried out? What has been studied in the applied linguistics related to the discourses of otherness? So we had to provide very generalized statements about the topic, and then in line with the second step, then comes actually step three, which is about reviewing items of previous research. Now here it is important that in introduction part we do not actually give very detailed literature review, because in some of the research paper it happens that literature review is separate part in the article. But if you think that your article contains literature review and introduction as a merged part, then you can bring very in-depth study, in-depth existing body of knowledge to support your topic, support your problem statement. So while doing that, you have to look into one important thing, that whenever you study a certain topic, you have to see that what is actually what is happening within the scholarly publishing. For example, whether all the scholars, they have the consensus about the topic that you are studying. Are you think that they have kind of disagreements on the topic, maybe from a theoretical or a methodological perspective? So you have to create a kind of a broader picture in your introduction part in the very first move. So once this first move has been developed, that is territory or situation or background in simpler words, then comes establishing a niche. Now, niche is a very sometimes ambiguous term. For example, most of the people think that niche is perhaps something similar to finding a gap, but actually gap is just one part of the niche. You will see that, for example, niche can be divided into two important concepts. For example, sometimes it is about identifying a gap, okay, and then continuing the research in the same field. Or in some cases, it happens that it is not about the gap, but you want to actually extend a particular tradition, a particular methodological, position within the topic, a theoretical position of the topic. So therefore, niche is importantly about two things. It is about the gap, and other it is about extension of a certain idea, extension of a certain theory on the same topic or within the same field. That's possible. But according to John Swales, he has provided some of the steps while establishing a niche in the topic. For example, he proposes that you can counterclaim. Uh, for example, what do we counterclaim? For example, maybe you think that you have reviewed already, existing body of knowledge, and you think that you have kind of disagreement with the existing body of knowledge. Maybe certain studies have been conducted on a similar on single concept. Okay, but you think that all have looked at this topic from a single perspective, single theoretical position, or a single methodological perspective, are using the same kind of research tools. So you can always counterclaim, maybe to give opposing idea, and you have a different position that you want to bring in the research article. That is possible. And sometimes it is again very important to see that whenever you want to study a certain concept, you have to look into different positions, and you always need to bring different researchers on a single concept in a dialogue, and then you need to establish your position. You need to situate yourself within a particular school of thought, within a particular theoretical perspective to deal with the topic. So counterclaiming is always possible as a part of the niche. So, or you can always indicate the gap directly, where you have reviewed some studies, okay, on a particular topic, and then you feel that there is a gap. Now, by gap, I mean to say that it is not only the gap of the context. For example, most of the people think that finding a gap means you have to just see, for example, a particular study has been conducted in the US context and it is not conducted in the Pakistani context. So this is a very kind of weaker position. This can be possible, but it's a weaker position in the research gap. You have to look at the topic, as an international researcher. You have to look at a particular topic, from different perspectives, from different angles. So you have to see, maybe there are certain theoretical gaps, okay, that you want to fill, or there can be certain methodological gap that you want to fill, and then there can be some contextual gaps that you want to fulfill. So that's possible that you can think about. So, and for that, I would say that it is very important to have in-depth literature review. So when you read more about the topic that you are studying, that will really, give you a clear idea about how can you, what possible research gap is there in the existing literature. And then there can be question raising. Maybe, some studies have been conducted and you think that you can raise questions on particular, findings, or because you have already as a kind of, a different proof and different evidences on the same phenomena that you are studying in. So in that context, you can raise question on that, and maybe you think that this study has been conducted within that particular context, but it is not answered, let's say, something that you have in the mind, and you want to, considering that particular question, you want to further conduct a research. So that can also be possible. And then we have a continuing a tradition. So by continuing a tradition, we mean that sometimes it happens that there's already so much research on a particular topic within a same theoretical, within the same methodological position. And it is not necessary that some people believe that, for example, some topics have been conducted, now we cannot continue, we cannot conduct a research on this topic because it has already been studied. I wouldn't agree with this, because a research is always possible on the topics that have been investigated again. But we have to see that what we are doing, whether we are extending, whether we are just trying to look at the topic from a very different perspective, or in the same tradition, maybe you want to further extend any idea. And it happens in the field of research. There's some models, for example, they are revised. Some theories are revised, they are actually modified. So this is how, scientific research works, because science is something which is evolving. Science is always, in the process of revision, in the process of modifications. So we cannot claim that, for example, some topics have been done now. We cannot continue on the same topic again. We can always go with that, but we need to see what we are doing, whether we are extending the tradition, we are trying to improve some methodological, considerations which have been already carried out in the past, and now you need to look at from a different set of methodological tools, and maybe you want to look at it from a different, theoretical perspective, or maybe in your particular context, the situation, exists in a different way, and then you want to see the same topic, but in a different way. So these are the, some of the different possible ways to create a niche in the topic. So once you have identified the niche in your topic, the next step comes in the occupying the niche. So now what you are going to do, what is your role now? What is your research? What is your study going to do? So this has to be the part of, your introduction part. So this is where, John Swales proposes that it is about announcing your study actually. You're announcing your study, and you are going to tell what is your research about, okay, and where do you situate yourself in the field of this topic, okay, theoretically and methodologically, and what contribution, what new knowledge your research is actually going to offer to the readers. And I again would say that this is very important, that when you are working on a particular topic, you have to think like an international researcher. You don't have to look at, on local context, but you have to see at the field in a broader sense, that what is happening in the field actually, and how your knowledge would contribute to the field. So in order to occupy the niche, there are some steps that you can follow. And again, I would say that these are just steps, and not necessary that you have to follow all of them, but you have to see what can actually be possible in your case. So the step 1A, for example, it says that outlining purposes. And outlining purposes mean that you have to clarify, you have to specify what objectives you have set for your study. Okay, what can be the major research questions? And it is not necessary that in order to write, objectives and the research papers, there are different ways for it. For example, you can write down in the bullet points, you can write down using numbers, or sometimes even within the same paragraph, you can just write down your objectives of the study. And you can either give objectives or you can give research questions. That is again up to you. It is not necessary to include both research objective and research questions with the same language. You can either include objective or research questions, I would recommend. So then you can announce your present research. By announcing present research, that means describe the purpose of your study in terms of what the research is going to do or accomplish. In the social sciences, the so what question will need, it always needs to be addressed. For example, if you have addressed, let's say, you have given the background about the topic that you are going to study, but the question is, so what? If this is a problem, let's say the other NACE is a problem in teaching material, let's say, then so what? I need to, write down a very much, clear picture of how this topic is important and why it is important to study it. What kind of, benefits would this actually offer to the society, to the academia, and to the field actually. And then it may be announcing the principal findings. Now, by announcing the principal finding, that means you have to create a general picture of the existing body of literature. Okay, what kind of findings do exist in different, studies that you have reviewed, and based on that, now what your research is going to do actually. That can be, done in the move 3. And then it's very optional, but in some of the research papers, it is actually given that indicating the article structure means now you are going to tell your readers that what your entire article covers. So maybe you're going to talk about, for example, your article is going to talk about literature review, your methodology, and results and discussion, and other things. So these are a few of the important things that we need to consider while writing our introduction part. And I would recommend that once you have looked into uh, this CARS model, you can always go for the move analysis. For example, you have learned these three moves and try to download some research papers, okay, from well-reputed journals. Again, I would say whenever you read any kind of literature, it is important that it should be from well-reputed journals. And then look at, a particular introduction from a CARS model and try to see that what moves have been followed in different, introduction parts, and that will really give you a very important picture of how different researchers in your field they are writing introduction part, and whether they follow the CARS model or not. But I would tell you that most of the research journals, most of the researchers around the world, they actually follow the CARS model in order to write their introduction part. So thank you so much. In my next session, I will be talking about how literature review is developed, okay, because it's again a very, very complicated thing. Also, I will be providing you some suggestion about developing literature review in the light of what the scholars suggest, and then further we will continue with it. Thank you so much.